Hey everybody, my name's David. I am one of the founders over here at VGSoft, and we wanted to get a recorded demo out to you guys, mostly so you could just kind of do it on demand as you wanted. We're going to try to keep it under 30 minutes for you, and just to give kind of quick overviews of everything in the system so that you can kind of check it out and then schedule kind of a follow-up. Rather than committing to a full long hour demo, we wanted to give you a shorter option as well. But so what you're looking at right here is the dashboard. This kind of scales up and down as access would for providers or staff members within your organization that might need to see different things. So everybody's going to get a calendar. Admins or billers will get claim and invoice information. Supervisors will get incomplete timesheet information. And then session notes, tasks, and recent messages all kind of pertain to the things that relate to you as necessary. So session notes you need to do, tasks you need to complete, any messages you need to follow up on. That's kind of, the dashboard view. I just wanted to give a quick highlight there. These are snapshots of things that live elsewhere in the system that pertain to you or to your role within the organization. We wanted to make sure that we were kind of chunking this into workflows that kind of made sense. So I think the first thing that we're going to go through is to check out some of the company settings and payer settings, things like that, staff and user creation, some easy things to kind of go through in the workflow. So down here, typically in a live demo, I would go just down the list, but we're going to kind of go through this in a way that makes more sense from a workflow perspective. So I jumped down here to settings kind of initially. There's a bunch of different types of settings. We're going to go through company first, which is just where all of your demographic information lists out, addresses, all that good stuff. Company logo you can put in there, decide who you want to do certain things here on this page, how you want to pay travel, when you want some notifications, how often you want to bill and invoice, things like that. That all kind of lives here on the company page. Payer settings. This is where you're going to come kind of set up your fee schedules and things like that. We can add payers, from the clearinghouse. Start typing in here. TRICARE is a popular one, so we'll put TRICARE there. If you're east or west or overseas, select the appropriate one here. And then you'll kind of start going through your fee schedule, adding modifiers, adding your pricing for those types of things. For TRICARE, you're going to select maybe roll pricing, turn on the 24-hour time, et cetera. But these are things that we'll walk through in a demo. Just wanted to kind of, or in an onboarding if you guys decide you want to move forward. Things that we'll go through. We'll help you set all this up in more of a live setting, but just to kind of show you where they all live. It all lives back here. Excuse me. The next kind of thing that you would do to get everybody set up would be to add users and clients. So we just do that from the users page. Add a user. This is what the information you're going to need. So an email address where they're going to get their invitation to sign in, what role they're going to fulfill within your organization. So if you say they're going to be a therapist, then you'll get to pick, a discipline for them, and then what role they may fill within your organization. Then just the rest of that demographic information and activation date can live out in the future if you want to get them added, for maybe next month, et cetera, or based on their start date, whatever might work for you. So that's user creation, client, same thing, just a little bit of information. First name, last name, date of birth, and gender are not required. Where they're going to be seen, and then what types of services they're going to receive for your organization. The next screen, we'll go through guardian information. Again, first name, last name, contact information for mom, dad, grandma, whoever it might be. If it's a sibling or an existing client, or that there's an existing guardian, you can select the existing option and select from the drop down. And then next screen, you'll select a supervisor. I didn't select anything, but there would be a box that said supervisor. You would select the appropriate clinician that's going to supervise that case. So that's how you add staff and users. And then I kind of wanted to move on to some daily operations type things. So scheduling, program book management, and then conducting a session. So I've already got some things on the calendar, but I'll kind of walk through it real quick from today's appointment. So here's kind of a calendar widget. Anywhere that you see a calendar or an appointment, you can get to these widgets, but I did it from the calendar. So you can schedule based on you can create a new appointment based on the new button wherever you can find one. So they kind of live on the calendar or the schedule. This This one's already built, so we're just going to walk through it. So today we're going to do a therapy session in home with Cameron. We can change these to associate with different billing codes. So evaluations are going to include your evaluation codes. Therapy will include your therapy and your parent training codes. And then there's also a supervision tag that allows you to schedule on top of an RBT event to accomplish those types of things, so that we can output a supervision report to you down here. But I'll show you that later. So the next screen is basically the authorization and billing information. So it'll default if you just provide ABA, but if you have ABA, speech, OT, PT, whatever it might be, you'll have to select the discipline for which you're scheduling, and then that will distill down to the correct authorization selections for you. You'll select your authorization, you'll select your billing code that lives within that authorization, and then you can add any modifiers here. In the payer settings, you can also add those as a default. So you kind of see this one being defaulted on here. It just showed up. I didn't type it. Just kind of helps you get some of those things done. So maybe you don't forget. On the next screen is where you actually set the appointment details. So there are, well, I'm just going to have to we're going to have to start over real quick. So to schedule an event, you'll pick either therapy, which is going to be your 97153 through 58. So your therapy and your parent training kind of codes, either group or individual. The evaluation codes will be 97151, 97152, any H or T codes that might be legacy. That's also true for therapy codes. Supervision is going to be a way to schedule on top of an already existing RBT event. It just allows us to output contacts and hours and percentage in a report for you in the back end. These other event types are administrative for time tracking for folks. Therapy, we're going to select therapy for today. We're going to do it at the office. These are selections in this one that are going to go towards that CMS 1500 box where you're performing the service at. You can name the title of the therapy event something if you want to. We're not going to. It just defaults to whatever you select here. Categories we can talk about later if they make sense to your organization. It's just the ability to track calendar or event-based items that you might want to track. We're going to schedule with Cameron. We can give a description if we want to. Not super important if you don't. The next screen, you'll select your discipline. Cameron only receives ABA, but if he receives speech or OT, we'd have to select the discipline we were scheduling for. That's going to give you the correct authorizations for that kiddo, or excuse, for that discipline. And then we will select the code. So we're going to schedule 5-3 today. Modifiers get chunked in here, either based on the payer settings that we set up that I showed you a little bit ago, or we can type them here. So maybe you're going to do it remote. There are 4 different kind of ways to schedule. Never is just obviously that we're going to schedule for today. It's kind of a one-off appointment. We're going to throw it on the calendar. Daily gives you Monday through Friday. All the recurring kind of events will give you a start and an end date. Generally, people will do that within the authorization limits to not, go outside those windows. All of them will give you start and end times. So I'll show you the weekly difference here is we're going to give you Saturday and Sundays options and more of kind of a customizable schedule where, maybe it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday kid or client. I should quit saying kid for the purpose of this, but we'll select a provider. I'm going to select me. And then other attendees is a way to put it on somebody else's calendar. So maybe you have a BC ABA out there doing supervision for you, but you need to sign the note as the BCBA. You can put it on both your calendars. Your assistant can fill out the note. You can get it at the end of the day and sign it. That's what that's for. The next screen is just a kind of a recap of everything that you did on the previous screens. You'll hit schedule and move on. I'm not going to because I already have an appointment for Cameron and I today. So that's kind of how that works. I do want to show you the schedule real quick because it's more of a linear view of the schedule. So what you're seeing here is employees across the top, and down here across this, the y-axis is time. So you'll see all the appointments. There aren't any here, but just imagine different appointment types kind of scattered out through here. We can filter by employee or client across the top, so we can change the view to based on what we're looking at. We can filter by offices if you have multiples. and we can filter by service type as well. And then you can hide all the empty stuff if you just don't want to see the empties. To point out the new event tag there. This is just a way to kind of see the schedule in a more of a linear fashion for the day. Everybody's brain works a little different, so we give you different ways to look at it. Jumping into the library and the program book on kind of, keeping in the vein of that day-to-day operation, I'm going to show you the library real quick. So we can add goals and we can add categories here. Think of categories as just a bucket. You can see names here. You can see echoics, introverbals, manding. These help you filter or folderize your program book. And I'll show you that here in a second when we get there. But the library is pretty straightforward. It's a repository of goals. You're seeing a bunch of ables kind of written out here. To add a goal, you'll just click add goal and you can add a new one, just novel, straight, out of your brain. But I don't want to show you one that's already built. So they all have a title. They all have categories that you can select. Well, you don't have to put in a category. The data collection method, so you can see all of them here. The only one that you're not seeing listed here is a long-term goal, and I'll show you that in the program book. Excuse me again. Here's prompt levels. We got the doctrinal ones from the the text, but you can also type here. So if you type David's prompt, you'll get that on this goal inside of the session, and we can go from there. The description is really free form for you guys. We want you to be able to write whatever you want in here. What you're seeing there is the ABLES description for A1, but I usually tell people write all your BCBA GWIS stuff here. So setting, materials, teaching instruction, all your cool stuff should go here. They'll be able to read this in the session, and I'll point that out here in a second. Below that, you're going to get master criteria and just auto advancement options here for this goal. So your minimum to graphs, 0 to infinity, whatever you can imagine. And then master criteria. So 80% across 3 sessions is how this one is written. And then the baseline session option over here, if you have auto phase change toggled on, you'll see that it'll advance through the programming for you. So you select 3 at the end of that 3rd baseline session. If we've met the mastery criteria, we'll advance to maintenance. If we haven't, we'll go into intervention. Same thing will happen from intervention into maintenance, and then also in maintenance back to intervention if they fall below that master criteria. So that's how you're going to build and edit goals here. You can also do that straight from the program book if you want to. So jumping into a program book for Cameron, who we were already speaking about. Across the top up here, you'll see a way to add a new goal. So you can select from the template and get the drop down. So let's select A1 because that's the one we were looking at before. Here you go. A way to add the long-term goal down here. I'll walk you through this if you guys decide to want to move forward on how to do that, but that's where that kind of shows up. The differences that I'm going to show you here are you can select the status from the program book that you want to put it in, and you can also toggle these 2 on. So create a new goal. Had you been writing a novel goal here, you can just throw that straight into your library. And then pin goal puts it under this pin, and it also keeps it towards the top of the set, not towards the top, at the top of the session, so that you can access those goals easily. So for things like aggression or SIB that you want to track and not have to scroll for, that's how you keep those at the top. Coming across this black bar is where you're seeing all those filters, more or less. They're just folders, ways to filter through the program book so you don't have to look at them as much. Search is down here, a way to hide or unhide archived goals, so past goals that you've gotten rid of out of the program book. We'll tell you how many goals are in the program book, their respective status across the top here, and then you have sort options kind of based on what works for your brain, alphanumeric or by status over here. Let me get one up here with some actual data so we can look at it. There we go. Okay, so we'll show you he's currently in a session. We do that because we will show you live data throughout the session. If you see, if they met the minimum to graph, you will see that pop up on the graph over here with a orange circle so that we can tell that it's actually happening. We can zoom in and zoom out on the graph by date here, whatever you want. We'll get a little legend for the graph. If there had been another status or a phase, you would see that in a different color and a different, it'd be written here. You can zoom in on the graph kind of with your mouse if you want to. Zoom in and out here. Grab a couple of image types or a CSV straight from the graph if you want to. And then all these are just ways to manipulate the graph. So phase change lines, add your own, date time group, throw it on there. Zoom in, big screen for blind people like me. Edit button, same screen that we already looked at, just another way to get to it. There's a comment section. This comment section is specifically for this goal for you and your staff to comment back and forth, so you can see me talking back and forth to myself here, to make sure that we're either reporting new instructions to the staff or they're asking questions. Helps alleviate some supervision burden. Really useful for especially in-home folks where supervision is just fewer and further between. Another pin button does the same thing, puts it under that pin. A way to add entries if you need to. So maybe we put the devices away because we're tending to a kiddo with some big behavior, and we're going to add it for today in an active status. However many entries you recorded, you'll get all of the appropriate prompt levels that you've selected in the edit screen. So I'm going to say we got all of these right. It doesn't like my date time group up there. There we go. And so we'll hit submit, and we'll see it on the graph over there. We saw it, updated it. We got 100, moved the trend line for you, so you can get real good information as we go. Below the graph, we're going to see intro to met dates. We haven't met this goal, so we don't have a met date. And then below that, we actually show every single piece of data down here. We show it all kind of hammered out, time-stamped, and who did it. There's also a way to hide that data point if you feel like it's an outlier. So that's the program book. We're going to jump into the session for Cameron so we can see what the RBTs or the text are going to see. Anywhere you can find a calendar with an appointment on it, you can get this screen again. So we're going to hit enter to get into the session. And it's going to look a lot like, very similar to what you saw before. Across the top, we're with Cameron. Some quick hits of information up here. There's nothing in these, but there's allergies, warnings, likes, dislikes, notes, general information that we just want people to know. Maybe we haven't worked with this kiddo in a while. We're coming back, so we want to make sure that we read these before we jump in, so we set ourselves up for success. A way to access our note right here at the top. Don't look too hard at this. This is customizable. I didn't show you that yet, but we will here in a minute. And then there's a way, there's two ways you can do this here on the schedule. You can either let your staff, all your staff, edit the appointment details, or only admins. And that's a permission setting that lives in the settings. If you limit your RBT or any of your staff, if you turn that permission off, they'll only be able to edit arrival and departure times here. So, but a way to edit the details, and I'll show you what that screen looks like as well. Same thing over here. You can see these filters on the screen so you can get to things faster. This one's pinned, and you can see it held up here to the top. As we come through here, same kind of search function, same kind of sort functions. A's just mean intervention or active. You'll also see those over here on the actual widgets. All the different widgets do different things. They all kind of look similar in terms of what they have on them. So you'll see a description, which is what you write in this box is the BCBA. You'll only get this box in the session if you have permission to edit programming, so assistant level analysts and above, or if you maybe you have a fieldwork student and you're trying to give them some elevated access, you can do that as well based on role settings. Let's see. The comment section, if there was a new comment, this would turn red. Same thing in the program book. It turns red if there's a new comment that you need to read, and then a notification tells you whether it's pinned or not. As we click these, you can see it counting up here. This is a % independent goal, so it's counting towards the minimum to graph is what the fraction is. So we see all 5 of these. Maybe I got this one wrong. It was actually a full model. We can change all those. I do like to point out it's a minimum to graph, not a maximum, so we can keep going past that number. I do want to point out the % independent and % correct widgets look exactly the same. It's just 1 click versus 2 clicks. And if I scroll down here, I can show you that. It's not that one. It's this one. It's named the same thing. But so we're prompting. It's a minus. We're prompting. It's a plus. Just a way for you to decide. Maybe you're counting some of those prompt levels as correct. So we're going to let you give you that option. While we're here, we can see a few different other kinds of widgets. You can see the interval timer, really short, but you heard the time. We can score, starts over, score again, starts over. We can score. We don't score because we don't see the behavior. Still counts it. We got 3 intervals, 2 occurrences. I'm going to stop it because it's annoying, but you get that cue that you get to select how long the interval is here in the settings. Here's a duration timer. I'm going to start it and let it go. while we show you the task analysis difference. So same box, you're just going to get this big add steps or steps box here where you can put all those in. We can add steps, we can take steps away, we can move them up and down as necessary. You can do forward chaining, backward chaining, total task, whatever makes sense for you. And then those kind of same master criteria boxes at the bottom down there. We will stop this. So those are kind of all of the different examples of the widgets. I don't think I hit a frequency counter. Here's a frequency counter for you. You can just see it counting how many times it happened. So there's that. And then I want to show you the summary note box. I can't talk and type very well at the same time, so you're gonna hear me talk out loud as I type these, but this is just as you're going through your session, you're gonna want to document the things that you're doing. So, maybe we ate snack, we eloped from the table. Can't spell, but it should correct it. We hit the BCBA, we engaged with peers, mom reported lack of sleep. Oops, there we go. There we go. What else did we do? Maybe we could talk about the reinforcers we used here. If I can spell. Nope, sure can't. Reinforcers used. Maybe we used iPad, we used praise, we used toys, and food. So as you're going through the session, you're just talking about the things that you do, because every funding source requires that big narrative piece at the end. So we've got these things in the screen. We can edit them if we want to. We can add from here. So maybe we played with blocks and we sat well during circle time, which I realize that's not objective at all, but we're going to go with it. And then at the end of your session, you're going to fill out your notes. So David was here. We're going to say yes, he's ready to learn. And then you're going to hit this generate AI summary, and it's going to take what you wrote, 10 to 15, 20 words there, and it's going to narrativize it for you. So it's giving me a really robust documentation of what happened during the session. Two things that this has really kind of been good for is tone is consistent. And also it's put, I guess, three things. It's put about 10 to 15 minutes back into the session to do more behavior analytic things during that session. So we're not sitting in the corner, hammering away on our keyboards, trying to get the note done during the session, or waiting until after the session to get it done and having to pay documentation time to those people. It also has increased just at the end of the session documentation completion, where I've been able to see data from somewhere in the 70 to 75% range before we rolled out the AI note capability to well above 95%. That's huge. We're not chasing people for notes, and from an operations standpoint, that means faster claim submission, faster turnaround on claims, faster payment. Those are all good things. So that's what they see. That's kind of the front to the back of a session for the day. I do want to go through billing and reporting real quick. We're going to start in the settings, and we're going to start in company so I can show you where that is. The way that we're different here is we've automated this process. We don't really hold hands with the front end. We let you select how often you want to bill, what works for your cash flow here, and then what happens in the session. I'm sorry, not in the session, in the billing screen, where I hope I have data. Let me get something on the screen here for you. That's enough to show you. There are all these different statuses you saw me click off. So ready through review over here. Ready through issue are kind of during the birth section of a claim. So ready and issue, the difference there is issue means we found something wrong internally with the claim. So it might be a NPI that's missing, a number of units that's missing, something that we know is going to get that claim flagged and rejected or denied outright. Ready means we haven't found anything. It's ready to go to the payer. Hold just means that we're going to keep it until we're ready to send it. And so how we're different is if they land in the claims inbox in a ready status, we're just going to go ahead and send them onto the payer. and onto the clearinghouse and onto the payer on that predetermined schedule you set. So if you set Wednesday and weekly and Wednesday, every Wednesday at 1 a.m., your claims are going to go out the door. They're going to go onto the payer, and they're going to end up in one of these statuses, usually submitted. And then when we start getting information back, they could go to rejected or approved. But the same workflow kind of happens on the way back through, in that we don't make you hold hands with claims here either. We're going to go ahead and move them into the appropriate status based on what happens. So reconciled means that we got what we expected to happen. So we billed $909 down here. You can see this one, and insurance paid $909. So we don't need you to go in and affirmatively say, yes, computer, you got that right. That math is correct. Move that one off my list. We just go ahead and move it into the reconciled bucket for you. We don't even show it to you. You can absolutely go find it if you want to look at it, but you don't have to do anything to move it to reconciled. It'll come off your AR. You won't have to work through it. If something comes back with an adjustment for patient responsibility, we're automatically going to flow that onto client balance for you. It will show up in the patient responsibility column, and an invoice will be created if you select that auto invoicing to go straight into the parent portal, and so that those parents can see it and you can get paid. So it's totally hands off from birth to invoice, even for the parents. The next status is review. There aren't any in here that I can show you, but if something came back non-standard in terms of a payment, so maybe you got a big adjustment, you got a denial or rejection, we put those into review so that you can see them. We'll tell you why they rejected it with the denial code or the adjustment reason in the claim timeline, so that you can see it. So we show you this whole timeline for the entirety of the claim, the life of the claim. We can add tags, which are just internal things that you can do. We can show you all the details of the claims and the appointments that go on that claim. Oops, I didn't mean to close that out. We can move it manually through the status if we want to. We don't have to because it moves through the statuses mostly on their own. And then there's a reconcile option here where you can come manually do all those things if you want to. You don't have to, but if you have a payer that maybe isn't supported by the clearinghouse, which is very rare, you may have to move those on your own. So that's kind of how you do that. That's the high level view of billing. There's going to be lots of questions here. I understand that. We just want to kind of get those, that kind of quick walkthrough so that you can bring those really pointed, targeted questions and we can answer them in that sense later. There's a bunch of reports in here. I'm going to breeze through these really fast. So there's an aging report, shows you the average age of your claims here. Obviously you want to keep things in the younger bucket than the older bucket. They get in the old bucket, you're less likely to get paid. There's a payroll report here that just shows you all of these items. You can get to employee timesheet pages. So if there was other employees here, you'd be able to get to their timesheet page here. Event categories we'll talk about if you want a live demo. There are ways to track one-off things that are calendar-based for your organization, so not useful in this setting. Employee stats is a way to look at, see if I can get some data on the screen, what people are billing and what you're getting paid at the specific provider level. More to come here on reports. We're kind of going through a big update that's going to change a lot of this, make it more robust, make it more custom to your business. Accounts receivable is kind of a redundant report to aging. There's no data here because we don't bill. It's a demo environment. But these aging and accounts receivable reports are likely to get combined down the road. You'll just see under each payer, you'll see the clients that have those things, and you'll be able to look at their claims that way. Here's a supervision report. Let me get some data on the screen here for you too. Whoops, from the last year. Just one here. But so you get to search, you can search by payer, by provider. You can set the requirement at whatever you want. We default it to 5%. You can search by office. And then you get to see that Renee has not been supervised at all. That's had 2 billable hours, and that obviously has zero supervised hours. Sessions is the number of contacts. So as she's supervised, we're going to count the number of contacts she's had as well as the number of hours and give you a percentage, so you don't have to track that. And then there's a cancellation report, we didn't talk about it on the calendar, but there's a way to cancel, give a reason for that cancellation, and it gets output here. If you guys decide you want to move forward or go into a bigger demo, I'll kind of show you how that functions. But it's really useful from an accountability standpoint for your staff and your clients. Moving on to documentation a little bit here. We talked a little bit about it during the session. So we're going to walk through it a little bit pretty quickly, but you're going to give whatever it is that you're making a name. You're going to select what it is. So a basic form is going to be an administrative form, something you just want to grab a signature from a parent or a staff member on. A plan of care, and apologies to all my ABA folks. This is going to be where your behavior intervention plan lives. We call it a plan of care because all the adjacent disciplines call it a plan of care. So we just thought for continuity's sake, we call it one thing. And then session notes are going to be that day-to-day. So broader document, day-to-day. As you select them, you get different options. So all these things I'll walk you through if you guys decide you want more detail here. But basically, who can edit it, who can fill it out, who can assign it, who can it be assigned to, and then there's some selections over here for signatures as you go. Plans of care gives you service levels, so you just kind of create those. And the layout for plan of care and session notes is the same. You're just going to attach session note you attach to a code instead of the service level. On the layout page is where you get to pick what you want. I'm actually going to go back to session note and assign it to a code, so we can get one more box available. We got the AI summary here, and then all these different options to build your session note. You got a pre-built SOAP note. We're going to pre-build a few more for you in the future, so be on the lookout for that. The ABA session data is kind of where all of the data lays out, so you can move that around the screen now as you want to. So if you want it at the top, you can have it at the top. If you want it in the middle, bottom, put it at the bottom. We can walk through this in a little more detail later. But over here on the review page is where you get to look at what you did. So here, let me just put one of each on the screen so you can see them. Each one of them has settings. You can make them required, not required as you go. Move them up and down, edit as you want. You can change the way they look too for the report out of the data. And we're going to pre-populate all this data here for you so you don't have to. We're in the process of giving you options to add, take away from this too, as you want. So be on the lookout for that. But here's all the things on the screen so you can kind of see them. Radio buttons, check boxes. Radio buttons are either or. You can add as many check boxes or radio buttons as you want. Here's a table. Here's the data being reported out. And then here's that pre-planned SOAP note. And then we automatically sign, timestamp, and date the note for you there at the bottom. So that's kind of how documentation works. So we don't pre-build necessarily the note templates. We are going to stick a few in there just to give you a starting point, but we want this to be super flexible and super customizable to what you want it to be, because we feel like that's where the value is for us. So that's pretty much it for kind of this really brief, quick walkthrough style demo. There were things that we didn't talk about, but there are things that we'll talk about in a more robust conversation, or if you have questions about. So we didn't talk about messaging, we didn't talk about tasks or authorizations or files, but those are things that are mostly just ways to collect information or store information. So we can go through those if you have specific questions, but we can track authorizations as necessary, give you notifications that relates. So that's kind of the front to back, the high points. So you can kind of let us know what you think. Below the video, the development team is going to add a way to schedule a live demo or even sign up if this has met your expectation. So feel free to do either one of those. And then, if you have those questions, feel free to schedule time to talk with us as well. All right. Hey, I appreciate your time. Looking forward to hearing from all of you.